Assume that state government should handle all the needs of society. What about its hiring process? Do you think picks and keeps quality staff? As I read this, a lot of you out there, a lot of people in the world are getting a lot more governance than they thought existed. We're getting a whole lot of this. And this is based on this this pandemic going around that I don't necessarily know how much information people have. And I'm beginning to realize how little empirical evidence people actually need for certain things, but I'll talk about that somewhere else. What I'm thinking about here is I am sitting here just listening to people argue about what needs to be done by who, in which specific ways, what wasn't done by these people or should have been done earlier or should be done in the future and should be done right now. It's a bit troubling to me because I'm looking at history. I'm looking at what I know, the little that I know about the government, about the state, about different institutions, about bureaucracies, about how the world works, about how economies work, about just the little things I know about things here and there. In this case, specifically when it comes to bureaucracies. What makes people think that we need more bureaucracy to this? Why are people seemingly so surprised that things have turned out like they have? What exactly do people think of when they think of the state? And I had a previous previous one of these shorties. This is part of my shorty series. I think I had a previous one where I was talking about just what do people expect from politicians when they think about a politician. What are the standards they hold for a politician? What are the requirements when they look at a politician and say this person has failed as a politician? This person should do better. Take Donald Trump for example. They say, oh, he's unpresidential. I'm like, what are you judging that on? Are you judging that on his words or his actions? What actions do you expect from the government? What actions do you expect from your government, from governing bodies? When you look at something like the World Health Organization in this whole kerfuffle that's been going on, I'm wondering, why does anyone actually think the World Health Organization would be the sort of institution to handle what it's supposed to do, and that's spreading information and helping people all over the world? There's certain things that they do, but those things had been being done by private entities. Some of these things, when they say they're actually doing them, helping these other countries, it is just like every other state, every other local state government for nations and things like that. It is mostly getting in touch with people in the private sector and delegating things for other people on the ground to do. It's more of a coordinating thing, and then they're the middlemen in this. And in some of these situations, by people having the false confidence that they have these institutions and organizations that can handle this, they feel that need has been cared for, and then when it turns out that need has not been met, they act so surprised. But I'm wondering, what about them do you think? What do people actually know about the World Health Organization's process in selecting a director general that makes them think that Tedros Adhanom is somehow very qualified? Or what level of qualification do you think he actually has for the job? First of all, what do you know about his supposed job? Second, what do you know about the challenges of doing that job? Third, what do you actually know about the process of selecting someone to be in that job? Fourth, what do you know about the testing process of how this person can maintain that job? Five, how do you know about his past history and what it takes for you to actually be kicked out of the job? I don't think people know these things. And we're seeing this more clearly, and I'm seeing this more clearly. I'm seeing someone like Donald Trump come out against the World Health Organization, and then you have people who just dislike Trump because feel they can't agree with him, jumping to the defense of the World Health Organization. And I'm saying, why are you jumping to the defense? What are you defending? What's your confidence? Is it just your sheer dislike for Trump? Then I'm seeing other political leaders in other countries that did do as well, that also had their shutdowns later. They're having numbers that are relatively high in comparison to the actual populations and things like this. These things you have to consider. But some of those politicians in other countries are also going to think of, hey, where can we kind of shift the blame off to? Who was actually supposed to do this? Who was the stopgap? And I'm saying who in this sense, but WHO was the stopgap. The WHO was the people in charge of supposedly handling this thing. China itself, the Chinese Communist Party, is a signatory on different international actual treaties that say if something like this happens, they're supposed to share this information. Part of the means of sharing this information is with an institution like the World Health Organization. So if other countries hadn't been warned, if you're saying Donald Trump has failed as a leader by not having spoken more openly about it to the Americans and then leading Americans to have a higher death rate, then that is also something you can hold on Tedros Adhanom and the Chinese Communist Party and the World Health Organization and these other institutions. You can definitely do that, but you don't see that being applied. And I'm wondering just where is the trust? At the time I'm recording this, this is on Wednesday of the 22nd of April, 2020, and tomorrow is going to be the National Football Leagues. That's the American Football Professional Sports League in the United States of America for anybody international listening to this. It's a great sport. I played it from high school, played it in college as well, got a partial scholarship to it. I have some knowledge with it. I have watched it a lot more. It actually took me leaving the sport, stopping to play the sport, and actually not even watching the sport that much. Once I left the United States of America, most of my experience with American football was going online and reading articles about it, learning about scouting, learning more about the plays and the players and the different schemes and the history and things like that. I started getting more and more information to understand what goes into this whole league. And for me, it's not something that I grew up with. I wasn't aware of it. For me, football growing up was the actual football. I remember playing in school here in Kenya with these juice boxes. You'd get a couple of juice boxes together, open one end, and you'd stuff paper in them, and then we'd play little football games with these little concrete benches as the goals and things like that. And that's what I was used to. Then I got to the United States of America. I had a bigger body than most people. I was a lot stronger than most people my age. I was faster than most people my age, and my friends were like telling me about this football game. The first actual knowledge I knew about football was to just go out there and have one person, one quarterback, one center, one person rushing. The person who's rushing counts to like three, and then they rush, and everybody else is a wide receiver, and everybody else on defense is a cornerback. So the cornerback is trying to stop the wide receiver from catching it. So there was all these things. My learning curve to actually get into the sport was very high, but I had the physical ability to do it. There were certain physical skills and certain physical talents that people just have. You can't teach speed. That's one thing they kind of say in the recruiting process, in the just the sports process. There's certain things you definitely can't teach. You can teach technique. People can read the plays. People can learn tells and things like this. But just the physical aspect of it, there's certain aspects that you can say this person is just physically gifted to play this. Then you have someone like Tom Brady that wasn't necessarily as physically gifted as some people, and now he's going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Rob Gronkowski just came back in, and Rob Gronkowski is another guy who's just physically just built to just be a beast at the tight end position. He had gone to wrestling, and he just has that mentality. So he has a kind of goofy mentality, but when it comes down to playing, he's really on point. Tom Brady, I guess he was a lot more reserved. Maybe that was due to playing in Foxborough with the New England Patriots, but he seems to be coming out of his shell different more. But you have different personalities, different people, but when it comes down to it, there's certain things you can learn and select and play. When I'm focusing with this NFL draft, what I'm talking about is there is such a long process to actually select how you're going to get these 31 teams with 55 players on each teams in their practice squads and things like that out of the millions of kids that start playing American football as kids, that practice it, that put hours and hours into it, that go into all this process. Millions of dollars are being spent on these teams. The amount of money these sports generate is massive. They get into all of these things, they go through all this development, and then when it comes down to this NFL draft, they haven't had situations where they can actually go in and have meetings with some of the kids, test some of the kids, actually go to the actual players and see, is this player healthy? Can this player do this? And then now there's a challenge because with these shutdowns, with the shutdown of travel, with the social distancing, some of the people haven't come to actually have those face-to-faces. And they're saying this might be a challenge. This might be an extra challenge to actually pick a player. And then there's been so many busts. You have all these people who have spent decades studying this sport. It's a known factor. They know, so somebody to play this game, they have to be able to throw the ball from this place to that place. It's about scoring points. We have set rules. Most of the other teams have rosters that you know about. So you know, like this year, 95% of the people we're going to play against are known factors. We have film on these people. We have tons of people studying these things. We have a long history of this sport being pretty much the same with small changes. And you still have people with all this time invested into it, expertise invested into it, who pick a player and that player just fizzles out. That player just turns out to be garbage. Or you have someone like Tom Brady that was picked in the sixth round that turns out to be one of the best, most winningest players ever. So these things happen in a field that is so selected for with such limitations, that's been done in so much expertise, and people still are hit or miss. And the margins are also very tight. You know, if you don't win, you can get fired immediately. You can lose your spot. If you get hurt and somebody comes in, you lose your spot. If you're not actually giving results, there's actually direct results to test and see these are the top players. In most cases, if you're playing, you are the best at the best. And that happens, and people still whiff, people still miss, people still maintain the positions that shouldn't be in that position for various reasons. And we get that, and people understand that. But at the same point, people seemingly have no idea what the World Health Organization is. They have no real idea of how to be a politician, what politics is about. Yet they think somehow those needs that they have, they think they can define actual life needs into a clean enough package that somehow the elective system, the bureaucracy, somehow selects for the best people possible to take those positions. Where is this confidence coming from? Why would somebody who's very capable decide, I could do this in the private sector, or I could do these many other things? But there's something about the government, there's something about the state that has selected for me to actually get in there and be the best that I can. And I'll work with the best people, and everybody else will also be invested in putting as much energy as possible into achieving these things. We are on the same page. If we're on a team, we're actually just trying to beat this one other team at this one other situation, and we're not actually all having 31 teams and 31 players just mixed together and saying, oh, we're all going for one goal and there's all these mixed things. Where is the confidence coming from? That's just all I'm asking you guys out there. What do you guys think about this? So that's it for this one in my shorties series. As I said, the main question here was just, where is the confidence coming from? These small thoughts I think of, and then it's just a condensation of all these other rants and things. But where is the confidence coming from? Why do you think? Why do people believe, somehow believe that their government or their governing bodies or the bureaucracies, why do they support some of these things and actually think it's actually valid? I think we're going to see with this situation, it's going to be a Rosetta Stone of sorts. I've been saying this for some time, a Rosetta Stone of sorts of human society, human culture, human knowledge, where we can look at this one situation and we can compare different systems. Was this private sector? Was this more the government? Was this form of government? Were these people doing it ahead of time? If you take this kind of information, does that adjust to it better? How do you react to these things better? Do you want more government? Because a place like China, the Chinese Communist Party, you can, I think most people would admit, that is a lot more government than most countries in the world. Is the Chinese Communist Party the best way? Did they handle this the best way? Do we want a more government situation like that? Or do we want less government and have more private sector and more open sharing of information? There's different things we can ask each other and see, and I think we can improve in the future. Don't have confidence in things without actually having good reason to have confidence in those things, because they're needs and wants and things that we deserve and can get and have the ability to actually achieve. But if you think you have that already done, you'll move on to other things and find when you actually need that thing, it's not there. So that's it for now. Should be merchandise on the screen. Links below to the merchandise store. You can get a bunch of different things related to all of this. Like, share, and subscribe. Also links to PayPal for one-time donations. Till next time, goodbye.